Gaffr Fantasy Podcast. My name is Jamie.
My name is Angus.
And my name is Dan.
And you are listening to the EFL Fantasy Podcasts. Dan, Angus, how are you guys?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Angus?
Yeah, good, thanks, guys. Ready to sort of get into it now.
Yeah, so game week 1 has been and gone. The long-awaited start of the season. Some have had a good week. Some, like myself, have had a bad week. But I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm just happy that Championship football is back. So we'll get straight into it because this may be a longer one because I feel like there's a lot of key talking points here that we've learned from game week 1. So for the listeners, the rundown of it, we'll quickly go through our teams, how we did this week, and also the podcast team that we run together. We'll then go through the games. Once we've done that, we'll be doing no predictions for game week 2 because we have got a lot of Twitter questions that we'd like to get through, and also the uncertainty of game week 2 yet. The transfer window's still open, so we're not going to do any predictions so we don't look stupid. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right, let's get into it then. Right, we'll start with Dan. How did you get on in game week 1?
Yeah, great game week for me. No away days. I scored 81. Captain Vyman, 20 points. Vice Captain Pookie, 3 points. I also had Fisher, 6 points. Isaiah Jones, 12. Timon, 1. Bree, 10. Aaron's, 4. Johnson, 3. Swift, 8. Pritchard, who came in for the injured O'Hare, 3. And Victor Gyökeres, 11. Just in general, like, all of the 50-50s went for me this week. So Jones over Giles and going Vyman and Victor over the Swansea lads or God, and it just worked for me. And my other home player, Bree, got 10 points as well. So compared to the away days, I think I'm probably ahead of them as long as I have a good away days. So yeah, pleased with game week 1. Obviously a couple of injury scares, but I'm trying to roll if I can, get more information, and then maybe take a -4 in game week 3. But it all depends mainly on Pookie. But yeah, happy to start with 81 points.
Yeah, that's a top start, really, considering the score of the away days. Don't get too ahead of yourself yet, though. You still got to play yours. So, but, if that goes well, by the time we get to game week 15 and the boost reset, you could find yourself in a good position. Hopefully not, but we'll go to Angus next. How did you get on?
Yeah, so still a decent week for me, I'd say. Not quite as good as Dan's, but I got 70. So the main ones for me were Jones with 12, Bree with 10, Swift with 8. I had Vyman vice captain for 15. Pookie was my captain, which was a blank. Little bits from like Fisher with 6 and Giles with 5. O'Hare obviously didn't play, and it probably could have been a little bit different, obviously, with Giles if Watmore finishes his chance. And I had Obafemi, who had probably the most spectacular miss of the weekend. So it could have been a little bit better, but in general, to start off with a 70, particularly with the sort of scores that were going around on the away days, I think I feel well positioned. Obviously, as we've said, it then depends on how well I do on my away days, but comparatively, I feel quite well positioned at this point and pretty sort of pleased with how game week 1 went.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with 70 this week, considering everything. And considering the bad luck you've just mentioned there, those two misses, those two go in, you're on such a better score. So I'd be happy with that, Angus, which will take us into my team. And I'd be happy with that because I only scored 52 points this week. didn't go to plan really. Keeper ended up changing to Johansson very late on Friday. It's one of them. I'm not going to say I was going to go someone else. I probably looked at every single goalkeeper in the league, so it was one of them. I went Johansson. I still got 5 points, so it's not the end of the world. But timing with a 1, I knew I shouldn't have gone with him. I told everyone Stoke were rubbish, but I still went there. Got the 1 point. Gianoulis only the 4 points. Obviously, Norwich not doing that well at Coventry. Double Borough defence in Jones and Giles, so happy with the Jones goal. Like yourself, Angus, I was on the coach home from Millwall watching the game on my phone, and when Watmore missed that, I'm surprised the bus didn't crash. I think everybody was just settling down to go asleep, stuck in London traffic, and I am going mental at Watmore. Swift, I got 8. James McLean come off my bench with 6 points for Aware. Chair let me down with just a 2, but then the ones that let me down was my strike force. I've got it completely wrong. Obviously, Captain Pookie, like the majority of the game. Vice Captain Perot for just 3 points. And then I went Godden instead of Victor. He had a big chance, but it wasn't to be, I'm afraid. So I'm sitting at 3.8k. I'd rather just put this game week behind me. I'm not going to panic yet. We're very early. I want to get more information before I start making -16s or -20s. Yeah. And so let's leave my team now. Forget that. And one last one, the pod team. So this is the team run by me, Dan and Angus. Mostly Dan and Angus. I'll have a bit of input, and then I didn't make the final bit of selection, did I? I didn't reply. I was at work. So when you sent the team through earlier on, I was like, oh, we've got Campbell. I didn't realise. So Angus, considering you're the admin of the team, I'll let you run us through the pod team. Just for the audio listeners, just explain why we're talking about the pod team. We're competing against the guys on Gaffr podcast and also the Gaffr community that's run by, I forgot his name, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, to Tom. So he kind of like does all the polls for the community. So yeah, we smashed them, and I'll let Angus tell you how.
So we got 71. There was probably a bit of crossover, or a lot of crossover with our teams, which makes sense really. So we had Fisher in goal for 6. We had Jones and Bree. We had Max Aarons and we had Timon. Swift, Chair, and O'Hare in midfield, and then Campbell came in for O'Hare. We captained Pookie like everyone else, but we vice-captained Victor. So obviously, from my personal point of view, I thought I was going to get away with not having Victor, given how late his goal was. But for the pod team, it was obviously good. And then we also had Piero there. So 71 points to start. Obviously, we beat Guys on Gaffr and the community team. Guys on Gaffr played their away days as well, and we beat them. So we're feeling pretty good about that contest. But yeah, so we've got the first win on the board, which is the main thing, really.
Yeah, first win of 46, Angus. That is
exactly
because we're going to beat them every single week, aren't we? Yeah. That might come back and bite me when they inevitably beat us one week. But yeah, so that'll be a fun competition between the two podcasts. So we look forward to that. Shall we get into some games?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right, okay. So we'll start at the Riverside then. Middlesbrough 1, West Brom 1, Angus. What were your key takes from this game?
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting. We sort of knew what the lineups were going to look like. But there were a couple of things we weren't sure on until it dropped. So I think the first thing was the exact composition of the back three for Middlesbrough. So we knew that Dijksteel would play as right centre-back. We knew Lenihan would play, but there was a bit up in the air. Would it be Fry in the middle and Lenihan on the left? Or what ended up happening was Lenihan in the middle and Bowler on the left. So obviously that's two very forward-thinking centre-backs, which everyone will know from seeing Chris Wilder before with sort of overlapping centre-backs, or occasionally the centre-backs playing in wide areas, that having players like that obviously helps that. Obviously no Marcus Tavernier because I think they just accepted the bid at that point. He's obviously now moved to Bournemouth since the game was played, but so McGree took his place in midfield, and then the surprise, I guess, was that Chuba Akpom started up front as a sort of forgotten man, along with Duncan Watmore. Marcus Fors, I think, had one training session with the team, so he wasn't going to come straight in. On the other side, I think, it was a bit more surprising, I think, when we saw particularly the attack of West Brom, seeing Matt Phillips. I don't think any of us expected Matt Phillips when we were putting together the potential West Brom attacks, when it was like, is it going to be like Dean Garner out wide or Grant out wide with DK up top? And it ended up being Matt Phillips out wide with Carl and Grant up top, and both Dean Garner and DK on the bench. The other slight surprise being Alex Mowat also being on the bench, with Malumbi and Livermore being the sort of two more conservative midfielders, and Swift obviously further forward. In terms of the game itself, I thought it was a very enjoyable game. It felt like a game of two halves, really. Middlesbrough came out sort of very strongly in the first half, and looked to be playing well. And you sort of wondered, particularly we've talked about the Watmore miss, how they were only one up. And then West Brom came out sort of very sharp in the second half. I think it was 6 minutes into the second half they scored, and it felt a little bit at times like Middlesbrough were holding on a little bit, or that they'd happily take a point, which for these two teams this will be one of the toughest games they play this season in terms of the opposition, you would think, particularly from West Brom's point of view, going to Middlesbrough away. That's probably one of the toughest fixtures you're going to have. I don't think either team will be too displeased to come away with the draw. I know Wilder was the unhappier of the two managers about the draw, which probably makes sense in the end, but I don't think either of them will be sort of upset about it.
Okay, Dan, your thoughts on it?
I think it was just interesting to see how well Giles played. I didn't have him, but every time he got the ball, it looked like he was going to create something. Obviously, we saw what he could do with Cardiff in a worse team, but I was watching it and I was thinking he's going to create something or do something at any moment. So he's one who's definitely on the watch list. Obviously, I had Jones, so I was quite happy when when I scored in like the 8th, 10th minute. But I think the double up could definitely be on going forward throughout the season. I know you have the. Do you both have the double up?
I do, yeah.
Angus. Yeah, I think that could be a good move. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Well, I'll tell you how I know Giles was really good on Saturday, because my fiance is playing Gaffr this season. She's based her team on Twitter, so she's been stalking everybody's Twitter, seeing their drafts, looking who was popular, and chose the team based off that. So when she only had Giles playing in this game, so she's watching it on my phone, and she's like, "Which one's my player again?" I was like, "Him on the left." How many times? Okay, and then she's watching it, and she's like, "Oh, my man's got it again. My man's got it again." And she's getting that excited. So he was good, because that's all she noticed was Giles. Quick question then for you regarding assets, because we're all trying to find our feet in the game at the moment. We're all trying to pick the best assets. So, and a lot of us aren't there yet. I'll start with West Brom first. Did anybody impress you in this game? Is in to put them on your watch list or consider buying them early? Dan, I'll come to you first.
So I've got Swift, and Wallace is the guy I'd want. I know it's going to be hard with the structure, especially with Pookie up front and the expensive wing backs at the back, but I think at times a Wallace Swift double up could be very interesting.
Yeah, just be difficult, like you said, because of the price points, isn't it? But
Yeah,
what Wallace got, 3 key passes, 2 shots on targets in this game, and that's away who we think is going to be one of the stronger sides in the
yeah.
league. So, yeah, I've added him to my watch list. I don't know if I'll be able to get there anytime soon, but I'll just see how he's going. Angus, your thoughts on West Brom assets?
Yeah, I think I've got Swift. I was glad I had Swift watching the game. I think our
Yeah.
questions about whether Jed Wallace would still be able to sweep up the bonus at West Brom in the same way he did at Millwall seem to have been answered, at least from the first game. He came away from this one with top bonus. So that seems to be the early indication
Against
there.
Middlesbrough's 2 wing backs as well. That's impressive.
Yeah, so
I
he's
think
very
what's
much
going to
on the
be
watch list.
interesting. I think what's going to be interesting to watch with him over the next couple of weeks, especially like 2 to 3 game weeks, is obviously you mentioned Matt Phillips played on the left. Grant played through the middle up front instead of DK, and then Mowat was obviously on the bench. Do you think Swift and Wallace are safe in that right and centre attacking midfield role? And then that's where the rotation will be over on the left hand side, because we know Dean Garner came on. He looks a lot better than he did last season already, and I've heard
Yeah.
good things from pre-season. And obviously Grant can play over there on the left, so if DK is playing through the middle, do you think those two will be safe from rotation?
I mean, I
Or with
wouldn't
the
say
5 subs,
safe.
liable to be subbed off frequently?
I wouldn't say
Or
safe,
safer?
but I think they're the two main ones. You look at the attack; they were the two best performers as well, which will count for a lot. But we saw last season where after he came in that under Steve Bruce, it's not necessarily going to be the best attacking players play. The amount of times we saw Adam Reach, for example, but we'll see. But I would say they're probably the safest ones.
Very quickly on West Brom before we go back to Middlesbrough. Furlong and Townsend, did they impress you at all? We had high hopes for them last season.
I think for me personally, they're in the back four, and when you're comparing them to the Burnley guys, the Middlesbrough guys, you throw in Bree, maybe Kamara from Watford, Aaron's. I just think there's too many better options. Not saying you won't pick them, maybe for like a park the bus or something like that, but I think there's too many better options.
Okay, and then quickly on Middlesbrough then. We spoke about Giles and Jones. These two seem to be, flavour of the week and deservingly. Dan, you're not on the double as it stands. You are, Angus, like myself. If you weren't and you could only choose one, who would you choose? And that's quite a difficult one, isn't it?
Starting with the difficult questions.
I don't even know why I asked, because really I think both of them.
This is
I couldn't
like
separate them. You need both of them.
asking someone to pick their favorite child or something.
I could do that quite easily, actually, Angus.
I'd probably still say Giles, because I think he was a little bit more. Obviously, Jones got the goal, and you saw some of the positions he was getting into. But Giles was sort of felt like on the ball more in the sort of those positions to get a cross in or play a pass, or that he's everyone sort of watched that game and was like, how has Giles only come away with 5 points? For those watching the YouTube, we should have mentioned, you'll see we now have lovely graphics, and we've got Giles versus Jones, and I think the thing, it's not necessarily the most valuable thing, but he had 14 crosses Giles, he created a big chance. He had 2 key passes, which it felt like much more, where Jones, like, he got the goal and he had a couple of shots, but he only had the 1 key pass. So it sort of felt like, you watch him and you can see the threat is there and that there will be returns. But it feels like if you had to go one, to me, it's still Giles.
Okay. And one last thing on Middlesbrough then. So obviously that's 2 out of 3 slots taken Middlesbrough. We knew they were going to be bringing in a forward. They have now, like you said, Force. He only trained once. He ended up coming on, so he's likely to be up front. Is he an option or any of the attacking players, or would you wait to see if they bring anybody else in?
I'm on McGree.
Yes, you are actually, yeah.
So I'm already on the triple up, which might have been a bad idea. Fors's numbers last time he was properly in the championship. I'll exclude the whole spell last season. When he was down with Brentford, his numbers were very good. And so I think the hope is that he could be a real sort of goal scorer for them this season. And if he translates that at all, then at 8 million he'll be a great option for people. They are aggressively looking at more forwards. This won't be what they've got. They will sign someone. So it depends whether you want to just go with fours or sort of wait and see what else they do, and then make a decision.
Okay, and Dan, you're just on the 1 Middlesbrough, is that right?
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that, but I'm going to have to wait a couple of game weeks, I think.
Okay, right, let's move on to the next game then. And it was the opener Friday night. Huddersfield 0, Burnley 1. Dan, your takes from a Gaffr point of view on this one?
Yeah, so I'll start with the lineups. Huddersfield played none of their new signings. Ruffles, the left back at 4.5 million, did start. For Burnley, Matson was left back. They moved Charlie Taylor into centre back, which was a bit of a surprise. They played a youngster, Costello. I think that's how you say it. He sort of played on the wing. It was quite a fluid formation. That made Twine benched, that was like the massive news on Friday night, weren't it?
Yeah.
They paid 4 million for Twine, and then he's on the bench.
Especially for those away days.
Yeah, and Ashley Barnes started up front. Matson scored the goal. Assist Barnes. He basically tripped over the ball. Roberts missed a big chance, probably an easier chance than Madsen, even though he wasn't getting quite as far forward. He still did have probably the biggest chance of the match. Second half, Huddersfield got a bit better when Radoni and Teo Adjan came on. Twine came on, hit the post. We were all on the chat because he scored so many free kicks. We were like, he's going to score here. He's going to score here. Be at the post. But yeah, the main thing about this match was just Madsen, weren't he? We saw him at Coventry. We knew how attacking he was. We were wondering whether 4 at the back would stop him getting forward. It didn't. He just bombed up and down the wing all night. 6 key passes, which is basically ridiculous to the point where even if he didn't score, you're probably looking at top bonus. I know a few people have already transferred him in, but
I better knew he did.
oh no,
like at full time. I had to stop myself. I was like, be sensible, be sensible.
Yeah, they're playing Luton, so don't worry about that, lad.
He was very good.
He was good though. He was frightening, weren't he?
I think what else you mentioned the system, it was very fluid because I still don't think I know what formation it was because there's times where Roberts was tucking in, it looked like a back 3.
Yeah.
But then there was other times when he was just gone.
Yeah.
So it was very fluid, which I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to watching more. Are you on any Burnley players at the moment, Dan?
No, I was very adamant. I wanted to wait the first three games, and I will still do that. They've still got obviously Luton at home this week, and then I
Easy.
think they Watford away. Um, but also there was the thing where they only played one game that wasn't behind closed doors, so no one knew what they were going to play anyway. So obviously Luton's got the match now. They can view it. We'll see how Burnley do. But I'll gladly take a point. Let's put it that way. I think.
Yeah. Angus, yourself, are you on any Burnley players at the moment?
I'm not, and I'm not exactly thrilled about that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I want to bring Matson in like straight away, because having him in defence with Jones and Giles is just like,
Yeah.
yes, please. But we have only seen him play once.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't see him pre-season. That team could be completely different come the weekend. So I want to make sure Matson is locked in there, because especially the Watford game with the pace of Sarr on the right, there's every chance they could go solid at the back and Taylor's there at left back. So I want to look out for stuff like that before I jump ship. I am aware, though, I could lose a lot of points this week coming.
No, you won't.
So hopefully, for once, Luton can do something for me. I'll be backing Luton in that aspect. Right, Matson aside, anybody else catch your eyes?
Josh Brownhill.
I thought he was very good, but if you look stat-wise, stats didn't look overly impressive. But I thought from the eye test,
Yeah,
he picked up really good positions.
Yeah, that's the
and
thing. He looked almost like he was playing as a sort of 10, like as much as I could sort of discern what was going on. It looked close to a 4-2-3-1 with Brownhill as sort of the 10. And so there were times where he was sort of setting up chances, little sort of passes, link up play and everything. But I also think if he's in that sort of area in a team like that, there's a decent chance of returns. And the thing is,
he's
we're
on
talking
set
about that in
pieces
this
as well.
Burnley team. He's 6 million in Gaffr.
Yeah, and like Dan just said as well, on set pieces
Yeah,
too. So yeah, he's on my watch list. But again, let's see how they line up and give it to, which makes it really hard to talk about right now, because you want to bring these players in, but then you've got to be sensible. We're very early on in the season. We don't want to be bringing people in and then we've got to get them out because they're not nailed. You want as many nailed players as possible at the beginning, don't you?
yeah,
Well, also that was the reason for some of my picks in my team. That's why I went Jones over Giles, because I know what Jones was like in the Middlesbrough side. Obviously, we thought Giles would be good, but it's seeing them in the team. Um, yeah, I'm willing to wait 3 game weeks for Burnley, but I'm not overly happy about that. But I have to now, I think.
Yeah, I'll be joining you. I'm again not happy, but I don't want to take the risk this year on, because otherwise the only thing we can do is walk myself into an overall. So I'd rather
If
just wait and see.
if you guys had Twine, what would you do with him?
Oh,
I'd
hold.
wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good when he came on. I know people have. I feel a bit mean piling on Dara Costello making his debut, but he didn't exactly put in the sort of performance that makes you think he's going to stick in the team. There were a couple of comments around about like in the about a week before the game that Twine might have had a sort of minor knock, so that might have also been why he didn't start. It seemed that he was over it, but if that's the reason why, if that's just the reason why, then the people who have Twine will be quite happy to have him going forward.
I think it'd be quite stupid to sell him as well before game week 2, because we saw how good they were. And if he goes into that side, then it could be brilliant. Obviously, if he doesn't play, or if he doesn't
Yeah,
start, that's 2 weeks in a row, then you've probably got a decision to make, haven't you, then? And I wouldn't like to be making that decision this early. especially if people have got like O'Hare and Pookie. Obviously, we're waiting on news on them. We don't know nothing concrete yet. So, yeah, I'd probably hold. Anything on Huddersfield before we move on? They were very poor first half, but I thought they were better second half. They showed a bit of passion, but there's no one there for me.
So not in the immediate term for Gaffr. Dan mentioned it. They were much better when both Rodoni and Angerin came on. Angerin in particular gave them more drive, more ability. Like, it's what you would expect from a guy you bring in on loan from Chelsea. Like, that's the sort of move you make to bring an extra bit of quality in that you otherwise might not have, a loan move from Chelsea. And you could see the extra quality, but also the extra directness and the extra the extra aggression, which you don't always see from an attacking midfielder. He was willing to come in and put himself about in a tackle as well, like, which I think is interesting, and is the sort of thing that could lead to him earning minutes quite quickly as well. But they definitely looked better with those two on, but I certainly wouldn't be looking in the short term at them.
Okay, let's move on then. We'll go to Vicarage Road. Last night's game, Watford 1, Sheffield United 0. Angus, talk us through this one.
Yeah, so obviously we knew more or less what the system was going to be for Watford. Rob Edwards bringing his 3-4-1-2. It's what they'd played all pre-season, even if the personnel had rotated. And it felt like that. You could argue a little bit over the front three whether they were actually in a sort of 1-2 or whether it was a 4-3-3 or whatever. But the interesting thing that we sort of knew, but just seeing it play out, was Kamara was the right wing back and Sema was the left wing back. Obviously, they brought in Mario Gaspar from Villarreal after Femenia left, and it also sounds like they're bringing in Ethan Laird on loan from Manchester United, which would see Kamara start at left wing back. And then the front three, obviously, of Sarr, Dennis and Joao Pedro is what everyone's talking about, really. I thought it was quite telling what Rob Edwards said about Sarr and Dennis, which was basically, as long as they're here, we might as well play them. Which I think is a fair argument. Particularly, you don't want to sort of sit them out, potentially hurt your prospects at the start of the season. Turns out one or both of them don't leave, and you've had them sitting out, not getting hurt for nothing. So I totally get that approach. But, against a Sheffield United side that, yes, had some absences, that front three alone looked unplayable at times. If they stick together, I mean, to be honest, if two out of the three are still there, including Joao Pedro, who I don't see going anywhere, they're going to be a real problem in attack. It just depends what's going on behind them. But yeah, they were really good. And I mean, the one goal of the game, even though they tried to mess up the counter-attack, when it eventually got to Dennis, it showed sort of get the counter-attack going with Dennis, Sarr and Pedro. Dennis feeding Sarr, who then played it across to Pedro for a tap-in. Like, that's the sort of thing that could be happening on a fairly regular basis, because there's only so much that some teams will be able to sit off them, particularly at a certain point. I mean, that was from a set piece and they went down the other end. So I think, everyone's going to be watching them, but particularly with Sarr and Dennis, the problem is you don't really want to buy them when essentially any day they could go. On the other side, I felt a bit sorry for Sheffield United. They thought they had sort of a fully fit set of defenders to pick from. They discovered that Ahmed Hodzic had a one-game ban that he was carrying over from previous. I think it was 2 days before the game.
Oh, wow.
No one had told them. Who else was it? Jack Robinson picked up a knock, I think, in the last training session. And Chris Basham picked up a knock late as well. So all of a sudden, they went from basically a fully available set of defenders to playing Kieran Clark and Reece Norrington-Davis either side of John Egan, and that suddenly looks very different. Norwood and Fleck in midfield, that might be an issue. Baldock and Stevens were the wing backs, and then Sander Berger off Jebison and Jai. So obviously the other interesting thing, we knew Jai would start, we knew Berger would start. The interesting thing was Jebison. I think we all assumed it was going to be Brewster. I thought Jebison sort of worked hard and sort of, did about as good a job as he could have for most of the time he was on, sort of trying to make something of the ball when it was sent upfield and everything. But at times it really wasn't going to work for him with, when it's sort of punting the ball upfield and then Watford can recycle it. There's only so much you can do there. They're obviously bringing more players in as it goes along. Cadra came on today. I don't think it's been confirmed yet. They're signing McAtee, a young player from Man City, on loan. So I think, Watford are the headline from this, though, aren't they? Particularly those attackers.
Yeah, I agree. That was very detailed, Angus.
Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be that detailed when I started talking.
Right, Danny, let me just come to you briefly. Let's start with Sheffield United because obviously we want to talk about Watford. Regarding assets, obviously, I was tempted to take a point on Brewster. I'm glad I didn't. But, that was a surprise, Jebison. Any assets there? I know it's a hard game to really have a look at Sheffield United, but is there anyone in the pipeline for you, or are you thinking, let's leave this for a while?
Yeah, some Sheffield United are similar to Burnley and Watford. They have quite hard fixtures to start. So they've got Millwall home game week 2, and then away to Middlesbrough. So I'm all wait and see until game week 4 at the earliest. The only one I'd look at is NDI. I'm not interested in anyone else at the minute.
Yeah. Angus, you interested in any of them?
No.
Straight answer like that. Yeah. No, either am I. There will be options there at some point. I just don't, at the moment, I just don't think there is there. Right, everyone wants to talk about Watford. Let's talk about them. It's hard to talk about them though because there's still 4 weeks after the window, and everything relies on that really. Because if that team stays together and they had an Ethan Laird in, they may be unstoppable because that front three is ridiculous. Dennis last night just looked ridiculous. He really did. He was absolutely class. But let's start from the back. Kamara, impressive. Got your eyes on him?
Yeah, very much so. I wanted to start with him actually, and it was just these early fixtures that made me sort of go elsewhere. But he'll very much be on the radar.
Dan, one for you?
Yeah, similar for me. I've mentioned a few times that Edwards, Forest Green Rovers side there, wing backs scored a lot of goals and got a lot of assists. Kane Wilson, who's now at Bristol City, was the main player. So Kamara definitely on the watch list, and probably whoever comes in at right wing back will also be on the list.
Okay, right, the front three. We need to talk about these. If they all stay, Joe Pedro, Danny Sansar, who would you be looking at first? Yeah, it's a tough one, that isn't it?
I'm gonna say Sarr.
Okay, why Sarr over Danny or Pedro?
So I really like Ismaila Sarr, and I think he could be really good. But it's also just the balance of like where the other options are. Like I think I can go for him and take a slight sort of haircut in price on a forward, and still get a good option. So like whether it's down to someone like Ross Stewart or someone like that, and still have a good option where it feels sort of just off the top of my head slightly tougher to get the same sort of quality of option with a significant upgrade at forward, particularly if you were still trying to keep Pookie as well. I know we'll come on to them, but that's sort of just off the top of my head, and I really like Ismail Assar, so it's easy for me to think, yeah, I'll buy him, whereas someone like Joao Pedro burned me the last time they were down, so I'm always less likely to buy him.
What price is Joao Pedro?
9.5.
9.5, right, okay. Dan, which one of the three is for you?
I'm going to say Dennis. I think he's the best player in the league.
Do you think he scores? You know, he's very greedy into, which I like from a fantasy football point of view. But then I agree with Bale. I can't choose. I'm on the fence. I think
That's why I
Sar's
hope
got
one goes. I hope one goes. So,
Yeah.
so it just makes the decision easier. Like, I think the most likely one at this point in time to go is Emmanuel Dennis. If Dennis goes, it makes the choice much easier. Even though it weakens the attack somewhat, it makes the decision easier, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd go Sar. But it's fair. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if I had both. So it's one of them ones. But then I feel like we're writing Joao Pedro off. He's cheaper than the other two. He had a very, he looked really good. That header that he had, I thought as soon as he made contact with that, I thought great header, it's in. And then obviously saved and then got his goal. I think we're spoilt for choice there, and it's going to be very interesting. I know what the answer is going to be, so I don't really know why I'm asking, but are any of you tempted to go now on one of them?
No.
You're going to play safe?
Yeah, play safe. I might go defender.
If I was going early on one of the attackers, it would be Pedro, because I think he's the most likely to stay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Going Sorrow down, it'd be very exciting, but I don't think
you
I
might
could
not
do
get a
that
game
yet.
from them. Like,
No,
you look at game week 2, don't they not play till the Monday? You might not even get a game from them.
Yeah, right. So Watford, then we're putting in the same boat as Burnley. Like, we're really interested, but let's just give it a week or two.
Yeah.
Like, settle down, and let's just see where we're at, especially when this window closes. Right, okay. We spent quite a long time on them, but I think they were quite important talking points on them because that's who everybody's looking at. The next set of 5 fixtures, we'll talk a bit about, but we'll get through a bit quicker than that one, okay? So, Dan, I'll come to you. Sunday's game, Sunderland started with a 1-1 draw at home to Coventry. Your thoughts from a Gaffr point of view on this one?
Yeah, so I'll quickly run through the lineups. Sunderland, they actually played 3 at the back with Lyndon Gooch and Jack Clark as wing backs. Because of that meant Roberts was benched, which really surprised me. I thought he would start. And then Hume, the 4.0 defender who we thought might have a chance of playing, what didn't, he was on the bench. For Coventry, the big news that broke, I think it was the morning or the night before, was that O'Hare has got injured in training. Eccles played at right wing back over Dabo for some reason. I'm not quite sure. And Gordon did start up front with Victor. I thought it was a pretty decent game. Clark scored the goal, assist Gooch. The keeper was a nightmare though. He committed himself and was nowhere near the goal. For Coventry's goal, Victor just went on a mazy run and slotted it bottom corner. Unfortunately for you, Jamie, Gordon missed 2 big chances in this match, which on another day, that's the 50-50 call that goes your way.
See, I missed this, Dan, because Rutland had a cricket game. So I was in Manchester with her, and I'd recorded it, and I said I wasn't going to look at anything, so I could watch it when I got in. But then I found myself just reading the group chat, what was going on. So I knew Gordon had missed a few big chances, which is gutting, obviously, as I went him over Victor. But that's the price you pay when you take a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
But the one player that really stood out for me during this game was Clark. Um, he broke onto the scene with Leeds, and he got that big money move to Spurs, and then just never got anywhere near the first team really. And he's had a couple of loans out. I think he went to Stoke and struggled, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. I don't think he was ready for it at that point.
Yeah, and then he went down to League One and done quite well. He was excellent in the playoffs, and he looked really confident today, just gliding past players. He obviously scored, had two key passes, two shots on target, two successful dribbles, just a lot of things that do well for the bonus in Gaffr. Um, I don't know what you guys thought about Clark.
I guess might as well. We'll start with Sunderland then. Any Gafford assets there that you're looking at?
I think we talked before the season about Pritchard and Roberts in particular. We also mentioned Clark, but those two, I thought obviously Roberts was left on the bench from the start, but I thought Pritchard looked very good. I mean, Clark got the goal, but I did think Pritchard looked very good, and he's sort of on the radar now as well.
Okay. And Dan, he was on your radar from Sunderland. So obviously you're
So
impressed with Clark.
yeah, I was impressed with Clark. I've got Pritchard, so I probably won't double up on him. Pritchard is just involved with everything on set pieces. He done a great ball, took a shot by Clark, and I think he's one of those good players where if he's like your fourth midfielder or third midfielder, even if you don't play him every week, I think he's going to tick up. He's going to tick over with points here and there. So Pritchard's the main one who I've got, but also Clark joined the watch list.
Okay. And Coventry. So when obviously the news broke out about OR, I literally thought, no, I was going to say a word there. Nonsense. Yeah, nonsense. We'll go with that one. I was like, he's definitely not injured. He's definitely travelling to Burnley for a medical or something. But it turns out he is injured. The extent of that we don't know yet, do we, Angus?
Nope.
So that's not ideal, especially as for someone who owns him. So I will be waiting on news before I decide what to do with him. But regarding Coventry in general, those talks in pre-season of who's going to start in goal. Will be Wilson, will be Moore. Dan's mentioned Eccles played at right wing back instead of Dabo, but Bidwell did start left wing back. And then obviously Godden and Victor up front. Did anyone put their hands up, and make your watch list?
Well, Victor was never far away. I started without him, but he's never far away.
Yeah.
Godden, in theory, for the lesser value, or the lesser price, sorry, could be value for the lesser price. But the other one that I know a few people went with, but really put his hand up was Panzo. Obviously got the assist for the goal. He also hit the woodwork. I wanted to put assist in inverted commas, but I'm being nice. He hit the woodwork as well. Looked a very solid player in there, and I think he'll probably be nailed in there. And I think Coventry are going to be decent defensively as well. So he could be a very solid option, particularly if you wanted to play five at the back, but you want sort of a 5 million defender in that sort of range. He could be a good option.
Dan?
Yeah, I think Victor's the main one, isn't he? I did debate about going Godden, but in the end, I just went Victor just for it's just for minutes, really. Like as you see, Godden got subbed. Victor very rarely gets subbed. Although, as I said, on another day, Godden scores and Victor doesn't score from 20 yards out. So it's one of them, but I'm happy with Victor. I sort of agree with Panzo. He's a centre back when you got so many attacking wing backs. I'm not sure he'll be a great option, but yeah, just a really weird performance for Coventry in the first half, and I do worry that they might struggle without O'Hare's creativity over a long period of time. But I'm on Victor, and I'm going to keep him for a few more weeks at least, I think.
Okay, all right, let's move on to the next game then. Hopefully this one isn't as in depth as that one. Millwall 2, Stoke 0. Angus, come to you. Your thoughts on this?
So, yeah, first up, I'd like to say I'm feeling very good about my prediction, which everyone has tried to tell me I'm wrong about Millwall to get in the playoffs, because if they can beat a massive team like Stoke, then they're well on their way. I think it was interesting. People were wondering with their lineup about how it was actually going to look. We'd had some questions about whether it was going to be one attacking midfielder behind a front two, or two attacking midfielders behind a single striker. There was a little bit of arming and eyeing about who would be the back three, but I think Cresswell, Cooper, and Murray Wallace made sense. McNamara was left out the team. That might have something to do with potential move to QPR. So Leonard played wing back, Mitchell and Shackleton, Malone at left wing back, and it was Honeyman behind Afobe and Bradshaw. So obviously the headline here is Charlie Cresswell getting 2 goals, both from corners, both wonderfully marked for those corners. Can't remember which one it was where there were 2 guys stood there watching him. One of them was supposed to be marking him, but 2 guys were just stood there.
And Wilmot.
Yeah, just stood there watching him head it in. The other one was a pretty good finish, actually, getting on the end of one and controlling the finish well to score. But he had 4 shots in the game. I think they were all from corners, but and obviously 18 points. So he's sort of the headline one. But I think the other one to highlight from this, and we can mention Honeyman, who was on a lot of the set pieces, but was Scott Malone, who obviously shared the set pieces. They look like immediately like they're probably going to be pretty good defensively again, in terms of clean sheets. So someone like him, who's a wing back, getting high on a number of the set pieces, it's going to be a great option. He got an assist in this game. He had 4 key passes, 13 points. That's he's not going to do that well every week, but I think it was an indicator of what he's capable of, and again why he's at that price, but that he may well be worth that price as the season goes along.
If he wasn't 6.5, I'd have started with him, because I did have him in. But then I was like, I don't know why I do. We probably make this mistake every single year. We're like, they priced high because they're good defensively, but when it comes to picking the squad for the new season, you're like, they're not that good. They're not that good. But then, become the end of the season, he'll be up there as one of the top point scorers. So, yeah, he was very good, to be fair, Malone. Obviously on some set pieces as well. Yeah, very good. Honeyman was good. I was impressed with Honeyman. He kind of floated. Bit disappointed we didn't see Fleming. We've seen his numbers. We really want to see him, don't we? Just to see if he is that good. He came on, and to be fair, at that point, the game was dead. Stoke were trying to make an attempt to get back in the game, but weren't succeeding. So, yeah, Fleming didn't really get to see a lot of. Cresswell, I don't think I will get drawn into that. He took his goals well. The good goals, they are his first ever goals, though. I did hear a stat on, so I'm not going to get carried away unless he does like a Sean Morrison or Aiden Flint from the other year and starts going off every week, but it's a wait and see. Your thoughts on Millwall, Dan?
Pretty much what Angus has just said. They'll go under the radar again, and then we'll regret not having them. But yeah, I think the one I like is McNamara, but he didn't start, and he's that 5.5 right wing back. So that's the question mark. That you just can't go there at the minute. But
yeah, if he's likely to leave, you don't want to risk
yeah.
that. How much is Honeyman?
6 million.
Oh, 6, cheaper than I thought. He's not a bad shout. I'm not gonna advise to get him now, or I'm going to wait and just have a look at him. But when you've got people like Baker or players like that similar value, Honeyman might be worth a shout. Anything else on them then before we move on to the next game?
I'm just going to say something about Stoke.
Okay.
Not going to linger on them for too long, but people are thinking of Dwight Gale. I saw he had made his way into a few teams.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We've been warning people about Stoke and about the Stoke attack. I just want to say, I think it's grounds for Michael O'Neill to be sacked that Jacob Brown did not start the game. Your best forward from
Absolutely
last
agree.
season, and you leave him on the bench. I just don't get it. And apparently you might be in for Liam Delap as well, because apparently the issue is not having enough forwards.
No, Harry Kane could play up front and it wouldn't make a difference, Angus. I suppose I better touch on Stoke briefly because, a lot of people do have some of the assets. Timing, if you're on him at the moment, obviously you're going to be disappointed. Just hold for now and just, we've got Blackpool at home on Saturday. So that will give us a better idea of where we are because despite losing 2-0, we didn't look like scoring. I said to you two, without sounding like Michael Owen, if they hadn't scored 2 set pieces, it would have been 0-0. That would have been probably a fair result. They were slightly the better side, but they weren't great going forward. But Stoke, let's just see what Blackpool do. Stoke are obviously at home, so there's a chance of a clean sheet there, possibly. But attacking-wise, honestly, please leave it. Honestly, don't do it. Not even Baker. I was stupid enough to bring Baker in as like my fourth midfielder, despite saying you shouldn't do it, and I deeply regret that already. So yeah, that's enough on Stoke because they don't warrant talking about. It's absolutely disgrace. Rotherham 1, Swansea 1, and I will come to you, Dan.
Yeah. So Rotherham put a couple of surprises in. Johansson did get the nod in goal. Kyoso was benched. I was
Annoying.
shocked with that. That is
Yeah,
annoying because
annoying.
I thought he was going to be a playing right wing back, and
He's my fifth defender.
yeah, he's mine as well. So that was a bit annoying. Obene played up front, 5.5 mid in the game. Swansea Manning was bench, and Latabodier played right wing back. Obene scored from a long throw. I think the Swansea defender flicked it on, and
Yeah,
then Obene scored. He also had another couple of chances. He had an overhead kick, and in the second half, he had a sort of a one-on-one where the keeper saved it. And Swansea, Darling scored from about 25 yards. The
great
assist,
goal.
yeah, by Grimes. And we've mentioned it, but Obafemi's miss. Oh my word, that changes so many managers' game week. Pirro assist. A lot of people went the double up as well, so he'd had a Pirro assist and Obafemi goal. I watched the extended highlights on this, and Pirro just shoots wherever. Like I think he had 5 shots this game week, so I can see why he scores goals if he's just shooting from anywhere. But yeah, the main player I've mentioned, I'd like to talk about Ogbene.
Yeah,
There was some rumours that he was actually being linked with Swansea, and they were going to play him as a wing back, but Rotherham played him up front alongside Connor Washington, and he caused them a lot of trouble. As I mentioned, he had 3 shots on targets, obviously scored a goal, missed a big chance, 2 key passes, just had a couple of dribbles, just done really well on the bonus. And if he continues to play for, I know it's unfashionable Rotherham side, but he's 5.5 and he's playing up front against a side Swansea, who I think a lot of us think will be definitely top 10. So I think he's someone to have on the watch list. The fixtures aren't terrible either at the minute. They've got Coventry away, then Reading at home, Preston away, QPR away. There's a lot of teams where last season they weren't defensively great, so wouldn't let's just say he's on the watch list. So I wouldn't,
5.5 million
yeah,
playing up
playing
front.
up front.
You know, that's a great 4/5 midfielder, and he's then with
Yeah.
like Baker sitting there on the bench. You know, to me, depends what fires I've got put out over the next couple of weeks. You know, that's going to be high on my list to do, especially if he carries on performing. But I don't want to overreact off one game. I can't do it now. Let's just see if he does play up front again and if he can continue putting them numbers in. From a Swansea point of view, Angus, I'll come to you. Just very quickly, I did notice Grimes got the assist for that. If you call it assist, you know, sideways pass 25 yards out for a rocket. But he did make 5 key passes in the game. So obviously they're really good numbers, especially for bonus. I'm not trying to say Grimes is a great asset by any means, but that's really impressive, especially from central midfield. But people want to talk about Joel Perot and Obafemi, I guess. So this is your chance.
I mean, as an Obafemi owner, do I have to?
Oh, it's horrible that is. Oh God, I'd have been fuming, honestly, Angus.
I mean, I saw people say Mr. Tapping, and I was like, that's annoying. And then I saw on the highlights, I was like, excuse me?
It was that bad, Angus. I wasn't even annoyed because it was Perot as my vice captain.
Yeah.
He would have got the assist.
I was just like, you're almost just like, it's so amazing that you're less annoyed about it because
Well, it doesn't
you're
even
too busy
class
trying to
as a
work
shot.
out how he's done it.
So technically, he's had no shots in this game.
Yeah, because it went backwards.
So, Obafemi then, obviously, I know some people on the double up. Some went Obafemi over Perot to save the million, isn't it? Yeah, 8.5, 7.5. What would be your advice there, just from your thoughts from just the one game? Are you happy to stick with him?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's easy to say now, but on another day, he taps that goal in, everyone feels different, everything's rosy. You know, he's getting in that position, which is the other big thing for me. If you look at the average positions, he's clearly leading the line. It's almost Patterson and Pirro sort of with, you know, behind Obafemi. So that might be a slight concern for people on Pirro, although it's not necessarily that different from what he was doing last season. But it's just like he won't be the sort of leading the line striker if that's what you were expecting.
It doesn't matter, Angus. He shoots from everywhere. He doesn't pass
well, I think
normally
his
to
shots number
Obafemi.
was low last year, so I wouldn't necessarily bank on that. But yeah, I wouldn't have too much concern. It's one game. You know.
Okay. Anything else to add on Rotherham or Swansea before we move on?
If you really want to overreact to game week 1, go and look at Ogbene's average position.
Yeah.
I don't think I've looked at that, Angus, and I'm going to have to go back into that game.
But he was basically goal hanging.
Yeah. I'll have me some of that.
Yeah, if you really want to overreact to 1 week, go and look at Ogbene's average position.
Definitely going to move on, though, before I do just end up transferring him in now. You know what I'm like.
Yeah.
So, right, next game then. Said Cardiff 1, Norwich 0. So this wasn't the greatest of games, let's say. But I think from a talking point of view, it's more about Norwich losing because these were similar to Burnley and Watford. Obviously, they've come down. We're unsure. Wanted to have a look at them. And yeah, they disappointed, didn't they, Dan? No, Angus. I'm coming to you, Angus, aren't I?
Yeah, so they were very disappointing. For those of you who like your XG,
I love it.
Combined between the two teams, this might be the lowest you see all season. They combined the two teams for 0.35 XG. So if you want to know what sort of game it was.
And then considering the actual goal of the game wasn't an actual shot.
No.
There's no way that was a shot.
No. So obviously that's a concern for Norwich. Is the first thing to say. That level of chance creation. For those of you looking at our lovely graphics, you'll see that I've chosen to highlight this with Teemu Pukki had 24 touches in the game, didn't have a key pass, and didn't have a shot, which shows also the sort of areas he's getting the ball. His probably most notable involvement was in at least one of the flashpoints and whether he is injured. But, the flip side of that is you look at sort of the chances conceded or lack thereof, will come to them, but it shows the strength of Norwich defensively, and those assets defensively could be very good. But going forward, you don't want to overreact to one game, but that could be a problem.
Dan, your thoughts?
I was more interested in Cantwell playing. He didn't really stand out too much, but he did get 4 key passes and was on some set pieces. I'm not saying I'm going to bring him in, but if he continues in the same position and he's on set pieces and Norwich get better, you think at 7.5 he becomes a really good option at some point this season.
So, what would be advice for owners? Because a lot of people went with Max Aarons. Some like myself went Giannulis just to save the 0.5. There's Rashika owners out there. Obviously, 90% of the game's probably on Pukki. What would be advice? Put that down to bad day at the office, a ropey start. They've got a good run of fixtures coming. Keep faith and let's see how they are in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that could change that really is the Pukki injury news. As all the reporting seems to be that it was cramp, so that shouldn't be a problem for those who are stressing out about Pukki. Other than that, I mean, like I say, the fullbacks you'd hope for more attacking returns, but they basically conceded nothing by way of chances all game. They've conceded to a pass. They're probably going to be viable just from that viewpoint alone, the defenders. But like you say, it's 1 week. I'm always wary of overreacting to one game, unless it's Ogbene's average position, of course. But yeah, I don't see too much reason to overreact at this point.
Okay, and anything on Cardiff? Anyone there yet? Or
I think it's interesting that Collins got 4 bonus, the left back.
Yeah.
I think there might have been 2 or 3 actually that shared 4 bonus. I think Sawyer's got it as well. I think Romeo was high on the bonus as well. So the fullbacks both being high on the bonus is potentially interesting actually. Sawyer's you're not really looking at. I think he did play a little bit further forward than you might expect from what I saw, but he's not really an option. Maybe someone like O'Dowda, who technically gets an assist for assisting a missed hit pass, but at 5.0. But I'd want a little bit more. But the fullbacks are certainly interesting.
Okay, anything else before we move on?
No,
I think so.
Okay, next one then is Hull 2, Bristol City 1. Dan, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so the lineups quickly. Seymonesh played left wing back. He is a forward in the game. Smith and Oosterpanen, it was up front. For Bristol City, Sykes played right wing back and Scott was the 10. Wilson was on the bench. I think he had a little niggle going into the game week. Vyman scored the goal from a Viner assist. And then Hull got a penalty, which was never a penalty, but I think there was contact, and Naismith can be quite rash, but you can't walk to the shops and then go down, can you? It was so bad. Tufan scored the penalty and hit the post throughout the game. and then Seri scored the winner with a massive deflection. So it feels a bit harsh on Bristol City, this result, but they lost 2-1. The main player I wanted to talk about was Seri. Not just his goal, but the fact that he got 7 key passes in this game.
That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. And similar to Madsen, if you're hitting that amount of key passes, you're basically going to get top bonus because how the bonus works. So I think Seri was going to get top bonus before he even scored the goal. Yeah, but let's be honest. He was a good player at Fulham, and everyone thought he was going to go up to the Premier League. He's now still in the Championship, and he's probably one of the better players in the Championship. So if Hull are as good as some people think they are, then Seri's going to be a key factor in this team. And I think he was even on some corners as well, so that just adds more chances of assists. And he's 5.5. I'm not going to rush to him because their fixtures are terrible in 3, 4, and 5. But from game week 6, he's another one of these players that could be a third or fourth midfield option.
If he keeps putting their numbers in,
Yeah.
7 key passes, well, I'll be all over that one as well. I'm going to have like a midfield of just like no
Key
one more
passes.
than 6 million. Yeah, everyone with the most key passes. Your thoughts on Hull, Angus?
I think it's easy to sort of get carried away with some of these guys, but I mean, at the same time, they've scored goals. I mean, the interesting thing actually to me is Tufan being on penalties. If that holds, that's the interesting thing. Although the decision is diabolical. He had a sort of, he stopped for a brew, then had a hop, skip, and a jump, and then went down. And the referee was like, "Yeah, that looks like a penalty." And then obviously the winner via a big deflection. So I don't really know what to make of them when those are the goals you've scored, but they were good. So they're another one I want to see more of because I'm still not sure how good Bristol City are defensively. So I'd want to get a bit more sort of information before going to any of them anyway.
Yeah, talking to Bristol City then, obviously, Vyman got the goal. You captained him, Dan. Was it what we expected from Bristol City? Were we expecting more? Were we expecting less? Me personally, it was just like when I saw the results before I'd even watched anything, I was just like, yeah, probably sounds about right. Bristol City lost 2-1. Vyman scored. It sounds about right. Would I be harsh in saying that?
I think going into this game week, I always felt like Hull and Bristol City could be like a ridiculous score. And that was one of the reasons why I went for Vyman captain over Pookie. I had him captain ever since the game week launch. I just thought like this could be like a crazy 3-3 or something like that. It didn't get to that sort of level, but it probably should have been a draw, but just a penalty and a free home goal. I'm not sure if we learnt too much defensively, but I'm just happy that Vyman scored, to be honest.
Angus, any final thoughts on this one?
No.
Beautiful. Right. We're now getting into the last 4 games, which we have put in the bottom tier. So there isn't really many key talking points in terms of Gaffr on these. So we'll get through these pretty much quick fire, really. So I'll come to you first, Angus. Basically, we'll do the teams. Is there anyone you're interested in? Yes or no? If yes, who? And then we'll move on, okay?
Yeah.
Right, so Angus, Blackpool 1, Reading 0. Blackpool or Reading assets?
Bowler looked very
Oh,
sharp. If he stays there, he looked sort of right back to his best, so he could be a real option.
yes. When I was looking at the stats on the way home, he didn't really stand out. But then when I watched his contributions on the highlights, yeah, I completely agree with you there. Dan, any for you from either of these two teams?
Not really. Just bowler, really.
Just I know we're going for a quick fire, but it was interesting. The Reading goalkeeper situation. I suppose that was quite a big talking point going into the game week. One, we did get the nod and goal. Quite annoying for myself. We went Buzanis as my sub keeper,
Yeah.
but ideally I do want to play in goalkeeper, so I need to keep an eye on that to see if I need to make that switch. Dan, come to you first on this one. Blackpool 1, QPR 0. Any potential assets from either of these two sides?
So, youngster Vale started up front. He's 5 million in the game. They have since signed Sammy Smodic, so I'm not sure how that affects the lineup. Dak was on the bench as well, so it's probably a no-go. To be honest, there wasn't much here really. Travis scored a wonder goal. Yeah, I think I'm avoiding Blackburn at the minute, and the same with QPR, to be honest.
Okay, cheers, Dan. Before you go, Angus, could you explain to Dan what quickfire is?
Yes.
Any assets that you're looking at from either of these? Oops.
No, I have chair, and I'm worried about that as well. So, well, I'm not worried,
Yes.
but it's not a good start.
Join the club, yeah. I'm hoping for a better game week 2 from Chair, definitely. Wigan 0, Preston 0, Angus.
I mean, I think the only thing to talk about from this game is Ched Evans' red card.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I loved how
Ched,
he was appearing like he
Evans'
hasn't done
red
anything.
card that Preston are appealing.
Did not.
No, they're not. Never getting away with it.
No.
They might
Well,
add an
I
extra
don't know if
game
they're. I
on.
don't know if they're going to appeal. I know they said after the game they would appeal it.
Yeah, that might be right. They might get an extra game for taking the.
Which,
Yeah.
if anyone hasn't seen it, Ched Evans slides in, gets nowhere near the ball, and ends up putting his studs into, I think it's tilts, like midriff, almost his chest.
I thought he took it like straight in the head at first. I
Yeah,
did
and
when I
it
first
just
saw
like
it.
it's a clear as day red card, but it's quite spectacular, really. I'm not sure there was too much else from the game. I think Wigan had quite a lot of chances, which would have surprised some people, but that's about it, really.
Dan, yourself?
Just Robbie Brady, 4 key passes,
Yeah, I did see
quick
that.
fire.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan. And then the very last game, then, worst of the lot, Luton 0, Birmingham 0. Your
Yep.
thoughts on this, Dan? Quick fire, remember, before you go in a big essay about Luton.
So just get James Bree, set and forget. There you go.
Lovely. Do you, Angus?
Love owning Brie.
Ruddy in goal for Birmingham.
Okay, well, let's get some questions in then. Right, I'll come to you one each. I'm not going to say quick fire because some might need a more detailed, but let's not take the mickey. It's 11 o'clock. We're recording here. I'm getting tired. So, Angus, Dan, I'll come to you first. Off my favourite name, should have been a baby. Who would you bench out of Bree and Kane Wilson?
Kane Wilson.
Brief answer why? Or I know
Just because Wilson's not guaranteed to start, and even though Luton are away to Burnley, if it's a low scoring game, Bree will probably still get bonus anyway.
Okay. Second question is from AD Tour. I'm actually going to ask both of you this one. What surprised you the most in the first game week? So I'll come to you first, Angus.
Burnley.
Burnley.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had an inclination they might be better, but the sort of style and quality of football, I don't think we were quite prepared for.
Completely agree. Dan?
Just the lack of goals surprised me. Basically,
It was low scoring,
it
wasn't
was
it? What?
low scoring. 16 was it?
That was it, yeah, something like that. Yeah, not good for the opening weekend. I'd probably go with Angus. Burnley really surprised me on Friday. Really impressed with him, especially in that first half. FPL full of ham. With the performance of Matson, Roberts, Bree, Giles, Jones, etc., is 5-2-3 the best formation? Dan?
I think 4-3-3 will be, but I can understand why people will be wanting to play five at the back. But remember, we've had like a freaky low goal scoring weekend to start off with. It's not always going to be like this, I don't think.
Okay. And FPL full of ham has asked another question, so I'll come to you, Angus, with it. If they all stay, who is the most important to own out of Pookie, Saar, and Dennis? So we definitely know it's not Dennis. Pookie or Saar for you?
I'm going to stick with Ismail Assar.
Dan, very quickly.
Pookie.
Ooh. Also reclosed, Dan has asked, who said O'Hare was best game week one pick? Quite convenient that I come to you.
That was me. That was my plan all along.
Please tell me you did own him, didn't you? Yeah, you've heard
Yeah, I owned him.
Yeah, we've all got him. Angus, Josh Jones has asked top three players you've got your eye on. Actually, I'll come to both of you on that ball. Start with Angus.
Top three. I'm going to discount players that I think are going to be sold. So I'm going to say Matson. Ogbene.
Yeah. That's my, these are my two as well at the moment.
And I'm going to say Jed Wallace.
Ooh. Dan?
Madsen, Jed Wallace, and Cantwell.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Andy Teach Mode has asked, do we worry about Norwich? I'll come to you, Dan. We briefly just spoke about it, haven't we?
I'm not worried, but it's not ideal, is it? I think we want to see they've got Wigan at home. It's the fact they didn't create anything that's the worry. Going into the season, we were worried about no Buendia, and he was the main reason Pookie scored all those goals. So it is a bit of a worry, but I'm also like, no, it's just game week one, so I'm not overreacting. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Next question then. I'll answer this one because we've already discussed it. Daniel Richards is asked, how long is Aware out for? And is also Pookie out? So we don't know yet, do we, Angus? So we're kind of just waiting on news for this week. So I'm sure as soon as any news, one of us will tweet out, but more than likely come from the pod account. So just keep an eye on that on Twitter. Any news, we'll post out there, won't we?
Yeah.
And then, so this comes to you then, Angus. FPL Flannel. What to do with Aware?
That's the tough one because I think a lot of it depends on any injury update we do get. I find it hard to believe that we'll get nothing in terms of an indication before the weekend. But I think, to be honest, if he's going to be out for anything more than sort of 2 to 3 weeks, I'd probably be looking to move him on.
Yeah, agree. Dan, Jordan has asked, why am I so bad at playing this game? He means not me.
I don't know. I think this game week it was a lot of 50-50 calls. You probably just got them wrong.
Nicer answer than I'd have given him. I definitely wouldn't have said because he's crap. No, I don't know. I'm just joking, Jordan. Dan's right. It's our first game week. You'll get there. Don't worry. Angus, FPL _ Aiden. What do we do with Norwich assets? Presuming what, and that doesn't make sense. Presuming what and see, and it's too early to jump on bandwagons at Burnley because of how good they played. And that doesn't make sense at all.
If you read it as wait and see, it all makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense now. Yeah, sorry about that, FPL Aiden. Well, I'm not
No.
sorry.
Yeah.
You made the typo. Put questions correctly, especially for me.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that question?
Yeah. I think if you thought a Norwich player was a good option before game week 1, you'll be less sure about that now, but there's a reason you picked them and it wasn't for game week 1. So stick with it at least a little bit longer.
And last question then, Dan, from Finding Timo on Bunsen Werner. I like them names, actually. For those who have saved their away day for game week 6, how far out do you need to start using your free transfers to set your team up? Or is it play your wild card into it? Well, firstly, use the correct names for the boost, please. These aren't chips. It's an overall. So that's your first warning, Finding Timo. Secondly, Dan will answer the question for you.
Yeah, I think probably I don't know how close you are to an away days, but I'd be starting to look at trying to use my free transfers to get there probably straight away. You should have set your team up to be like pretty close to it if it's only 6 game weeks. So I'd try not to use your overhaul.
Okay, and that's a wrap on the questions. Other than one more, Gaz FPL Beard 86 is asked as Meslier or Raya.
Raya.
Yeah, Raya, just because I don't like Leeds. But please don't ask us FPL questions on this podcast, Gaz. Play a proper game, not FPL. That's my best advice to you. Right, that's a wrap on the question. I think that's a wrap for game week 1. And this is how long have we been recording, Angus?
That's a very good question.
Don't say now over an hour and a half.
1 hour and 28 minutes.
Right, we are going to wrap it up there. We've done well. The rest of the podcast won't be this long. We do go around about an hour, don't we? Because, there is a lot to talk about normally. But this week, with it being the first week, there was a lot to talk about. So that will trim down over the next few weeks. We're doing no predictions, like I said at the beginning of the pod, because obviously we haven't got a clue yet. We're still trying to see what's going on really with all the teams. So we won't do that. But we will probably put some kind of tweet out if we can get the time, do a spaces maybe. But I think that'd probably be best in a couple of weeks, wouldn't it? My personal opinion. Once we've got a clearer picture of what's going on. So thank you very much for listening, for watching, whatever you do. I know I ask every week, but you're still not doing it. So if you are listening to this, we know how many have listened. Give us a retweet, give us a like, recommend us, subscribe. I don't know. Just do something. That would be appreciated, wouldn't it, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
all of those and more.
Yeah. Come on, up guys' house. Come on. Good luck for game week 2. I hope it goes badly and I have a good week because I need one. Thank you and good night.
Bye.
Bye.